Hello and welcome to another edition of the Moving Iron Podcast. This podcast is proudly provided by Axon, helping dealers move more iron for almost 100 years. Find out more at axontire.com. Axon was started almost 100 years ago out of a passion for keeping agriculture moving. It's that same passion that drives them today. With a vision for a better experience for both farmer and dealer, they set out to create a better way to move more iron. When you partner with Axon, you get immediate access to a full range of products and solutions designed to meet the complex needs of today's grower. Axon carries all major brands and sizes of tires, wheels, and tracks. From custom colors and sizes to fully customized wheels, you can have the solution for virtually any problem today's farmer is trying to solve. To find more or become an Axon dealer, please visit axontire.com. This podcast is also brought to you by Valley Transportation. Valley Transportation has been hauling ag and construction equipment across the country for the past 33 years. Call Parker at 800-657-4910 or go to valleytransinc.com for all your trucking needs. At Valley Transportation, our goal is to help you reach yours. This podcast is also brought to you by Ag Direct. No matter how you buy your ag equipment, from a dealer, auction, or a private party, Ag Direct can help you finance it. You can even apply online at agdirect.com. Learn more about your financing options at agdirect.com.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving iron time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving Iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. Markets with Shawn Hackett. This edition of the Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by Axon Tire, helping dealers move more iron for the past 100 years. Go to axontire.com for more information. Valley Transportation has been hauling ag and construction equipment across the country for the past 33 years. Call Parker at 800-657-4910 or go to valleytransinc.com for all your trucking needs. At Valley Transportation, our goal is to help you reach yours. And no matter how you buy ag equipment, from a dealer, auction, or a private party, Ag Direct can help you finance it. You can even apply online at agdirect.com. Learn more about your financing options at agdirect.com. Shawn Hackett was with Hackett Financial out of Boca Raton, Florida, and he's nice enough to come on a couple times a week to talk about what's going on in the marketplace. So, Shawn, how you doing this morning, man?
Hey, Casey, how are you? I'm doing great, and I'm really excited to follow after that tremendous introduction. It was really good. Flawless.
Sometimes it's hard to follow greatness, Shawn. I mean, I know what it feels like.
The
pressure's on
now.
Trying to follow that. I don't know how you're going to keep up with that. Well, Shawn, there's a few things that have happened here, and it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But you put out a report here just yesterday, kind of going over the Tango Volcano and the effects to the atmosphere and those kind of things. And probably like most people, I read about it, the eruption and the tsunamis and stuff that came along with it, but I haven't really followed back up on it much after that. And there's been quite a bit of effect to the atmosphere from that. I mean, it was for something that blew up under the water. It went up something like 180,000 feet in the air, something like that, 34 miles in the air, which is really kind of, I don't want to say it's unprecedented by any ways, but it was a larger volcano, and the effects of it, since it was underwater, were different than if it was above ground. So there's a lot of things there, but a lot of meteorologists are chiming in with a bunch of different weather, atmospheric events and stuff like that are popping up. So talk about that a little bit, Shawn, and kind of what your research has been bringing out.
Remember, we talked about that during grand solar cycle minimums, because of the increase in cosmic rays hitting the atmosphere, going into the surface of the earth and messing around with the mantle, you do tend to get these volcanic explosivity indexes of 6 or higher more frequently. And this was something we've been forecasting to occur. And this one, from a column height perspective, in order to have a VEI 6 or higher, you need to go 30 kilometers. The column height of effluent has to be 30 kilometers high or higher. The estimates for the bulk of this was that it went north of 30 kilometers, maybe as high as 35. Some say some of the steam went a little higher, but for the most part, this was definitely, a VEI 6 column height. The problem is, because it was an underwater volcano, the normal sulfur dioxide effluent that would normally be emitted into the atmosphere, if it was above ground, was far, far less. So just to put this into perspective, Mount Pinatubo, that went off in 1991, that blew up over 30 kilometers, deposited 15 million tons of sulfur dioxide in the stratosphere. This one, according to the calculations of the scientists, it deposited 500,000 tons of sulfur dioxide, so only 1/30th the amount. And that's because it was deep in the ocean. And so you have this high pressure, cold ocean that was condensing the sulfur dioxide. So when it came out, it was in more of a dispersed, condensed form instead of being above ground where it would just be shot up like a hot gas. And that saved the day for why this is not going to have a material impact to global weather. It can have a local impact to Southeast Asia for a little while, but it's not going to have the kind of impact that we're expecting to see when you get one of these that's above ground. You need a lot more sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere, because what happens is once it gets up there, it'll stay up there for so many years. But because the amount in there is so small, it's going to disperse really fast. And by the time it's dispersed around the entire stratosphere, the mirroring effect, which sulfur dioxide aerosols provide in terms of blocking the sun, will be very, very minimal. So we don't expect this to be the volcanic winter effect that we think is coming. But it is a warning sign that these kinds of eruptions are going to be more frequent. And as you know, in some of our past podcasts that I've done with you, we've gone over the solar cycle in more detail. The period from 2028 to 2035, the trough of the after solar cycle 25 is over, is the more likely time that we would see one of these occur above ground and really deliver. But it's a warning sign of what does a volcanic eruption like this look like, and how quickly can it change things.
Right.
Just like that. But fortunately, we dodged a bullet on this one. We dodged a bullet. Maybe Southeast Asia could have some cooling issues, some weather volatility, because there is a sulfur dioxide plume that will sit there for a little while, but it's not going to have a material impact, fortunately, for the global weather patterns and food production, at least not on this, not this one. So but it is a good test case of what's to come, and I certainly hope maybe it's cause for preparation, or how would we have handled this if this had delivered 50 million tons of sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere, and we went into a 2-year volcanic winter. Maybe we ought to prepare for how would we handle that. Maybe this will get that thought process going, because we have about, according to us, maybe we have about 5 or 8 years to get ready for the one that will come, that will probably create that outcome.
Right. So, what was it, Mount Tambora, right? That went off in 1815 or 16, whenever it was. That was the year without a summer.
Yes.
Would have this been a similar situation had this volcano went off and it's done similar effects to that?
Well, Mount Tambora was a volcanic explosivity index of 7.
Okay.
This one would have been a 6 had it been above ground.
Okay.
Now, anything 6 or above, Casey, it has a dramatic impact on global weather. But just like the Richter scale, if anyone understands the Richter scale, it's exponentially, and we go from a 6 to 7, it's exponentially more effluent. It's exponentially further into the stratosphere. It has a exponentially more impactful impact to the climate and to the atmosphere. So it is an order of magnitude more severe to be a VEI 7. Those are even more rare than the VEI 6s are. So that was a VEI 7. This one would have been not as bad as Tambora, but it would have been pretty severe. But given that this was more of a VEI 6, it would have been a less of an impact. But it would have been in the sphere where you would have had some kind of a volcanic winter develop, but not as severe as we saw during Mount Tambora at that time.
Right on. So, okay. All right. Good way to start off Thursday morning.
Happy times.
All right. So Fed came out with their notes yesterday. We're going to raise rates. They don't know I don't know. Did you really get a good feel for when they were kind of leaning towards March, but they were kind of him-hawing around a little bit? I mean, I guess what's your thoughts there? And then, looking at that, what's your impact you see here moving through the markets this week?
I mean, they said they're going to raise interest rates in March. Look, they want to pop the inflation here a little bit. The politicians are very, very worried. The last time that I recall that we had an election with this kind of inflation was the election of 1980 when Reagan was going against Carter, if you recall.
I do.
I know, I remember.
I was 3, but yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And I'll never forget that the famous words of Reagan was, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?
Yep.
And there was something called the misery index, which was the economy plus inflation, which was stagflation. Was it because the economy was weak and we had high inflation? It was the misery index. And so this is kind of what we're dealing with. We're dealing with an economy that's sluggish, and we're dealing with a lot of inflation. And so the politicians are at the midterm elections are looking out and going, we're going to be blamed for all this. So they just appointed, Federal Chairman Powell back in, the president appointed him right after he spent, I think, a couple of days at the White House in talks. Mm-hmm. I think the game plan is
that's what you want to call it, yeah.
Well, I think they said, look, if we're putting you in there, you got to get this inflation down. You gotta, and I think the first half of the year, the name of the game is pop the real estate bubble. Because remember, one of the big problems is the rents are going through the roof, and the common person out there, middle America, that the majority of people that vote in this country are looking at their rents escalating 5, 10, 15, 20%, and they can't afford it. Yep. So you got to get real estate to pop, so you get those rental rates to stop going up, and you got to stop popping you got to start popping the inflation down a little bit, and then when you get that genie in the bottle a little bit, then you can start taking a more, you can take your foot off the pedal. The delicate balance right now is you want to pop the inflation bubble, but you don't want to do it so severely that you cause an economic recession. Because if it causes economic recession, well, then that's not going to be good for voters in the fall either. So, so the tightrope is do enough to get it down, but not so much that we nosedive, and that's really. So my idea is aggressive early, try to be aggressive now, and then pull back and try to keep things together for the elections. That's the way I see it. I'm no geopolitical, expert here, but I think that's the game plan the way I see it.
So I'm releasing a podcast here. I had Rich Posson on yesterday, and I'll have that out here hopefully this morning. But he brought that very thing up. We talked about that a little bit, and his thought is by the end of the year that right now we're between 6 and 8%, depending on inflationary period, depending on what you look at and how you measure that. But he's thinking that they want to try to get it down to 4 or something like that, and they could easily do that in a year and a half, something like that, and kind of be down to that 4% range. So we'll see what happens there. But with that being said, what's happened with the market, the outside markets this week, and how bad they've been pummeled, a lot of money has flown over to the commodity side, especially the ag commodity side, and oil. Which you would think that with oil being so tied to the economy and these fears of all the recessions and those kind of things come around, that oil wouldn't be on the streak that it's on. But here of late, it's I didn't see what it closed at yesterday, but it was almost $90 yesterday. Brent was anyway. So oil is making some big runs. They had some big runs this week in a lot of different of the commodity marketplaces. So as you look at the market now, there's a lot of fun buying with money flowing in the ag commodity side of it. So what's your thoughts there?
Well, we have a very, very bifurcated time because we have this Fed trying to cool things down, but then we have this geopolitical mess with Russia. Mm-hmm. And so, are they going into Kazakhstan or Ukraine? Are they not? Are they going to hold back energy supplies to the rest of the world? Are they going to hold back wheat supplies to the rest of the world? So we had a big surge, then we had a quick knockdown. So on top of what the Fed is doing, we have this geopolitical rope-a-dope, we're calling it. And I think crude oil is part of that geopolitical rope-a-dope. Saying, wait a minute, we know Russia's a huge producer of crude, a huge exporter of crude, and if they get into a contest or a situation where they're going to go in and we're going to be putting sanctions or there's going to be war, how available are those exports going to be for a while? And so the crude oil market is telling you that the market's worried about that supply, despite the worries that, maybe the Fed slows the economy down. So it's really, it's very, very difficult market right now to figure any one day to the next. Like I said, we took off a few weeks back, then it got crushed, then it took off, then it got hit very hard yesterday. So very, very frenetic trading, a lot of noise, but not a lot of trends right now. And so I think what's obviously Russia has to make a decision. Either they're going to do something or not. One way or the other, it provides clarity, Casey.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think in the next 30 days, we're going to get clarity. Either they are or they're not. Secondly, I think the Federal Reserve, after they raise rates in March, will give a clear mandate of what they're really going to do. That provides clarity. Once you get clarity, then the market can move on and develop whatever trends that they feel they need to. Right now, they're still in this. We're not sure exactly what the Fed's up to, and we're not exactly sure what Russia's up to. So there's days they want to buy, and there's days they want to sell, and that means tremendous volatility right now. So,
yeah. All right. Let's take a look at what's going on with some cotton right now. Cotton is, like you talked about last week, cotton has was December cotton, 23 cotton was like $1. And I guess as you take a look at what's going on there, they've got to beat up a little bit today, but cotton was falling right along with oil again, like you've talked about. So when you look at cotton, what are some of your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, cotton is caught right in the middle of worries over a weakening economy, weakening demand, of course, increased acres, all those bearish factors. But at the same time, the crude oil market and pumping up all those synthetic fibers that cotton competes against, keeps kind of a bit in this market. We still think, though, in aggregate, right now, we think that the worry over demand and the worry over increased acres will win out between now and March, Casey. And we think in aggregate, we're going to see prices fall, maybe back to that $1.05 area that we were at before in the nearbys. We think for now, those forces will be greater than the forces of the geopolitical, at least in cotton, because it is such a cyclically sensitive. And $1 cotton in new crop December, that really works, Casey. I mean, they're going to plant acres they haven't planted in 10 years, 15 years. They're going to plant some acres in cotton this year. So I think in the aggregate, I'd be worried about a downswing. And we continue to feel that if you're a producer, especially on new crop corn, that's a mighty attractive level to be locking in some of that cash crop that you're going to be producing. We find it hard not to think that that's something you ought to be doing. Obviously, the market can have some other problems later and all, and you can always take some countermeasures, but $1 cotton is rarely afforded to you in the new crop at this time of the year. And I don't care if you have a half a crop, that's still going to be a profitable price for you.
Right.
So I just think that's something they ought to be doing, Casey, and I'm a little worried about cotton right now.
Yep.
So.
Okay. So I'm reading this headline this morning and trying to read between the lines, and I'm sure it's fueled by a couple of different things, but I want your opinion on it. Russia came out and their ag minister halted all their grain sales from the state intervention fund. Didn't provide any details, nothing. Just said we're done. We're not selling anything out of this. We're gonna halt doing this, and then dropped the mic and walked away. A lot of that probably is the tensions between possible war, but also that means that they're pretty low then if they're worried about that as well. So I guess what are your thoughts there?
Well, we know Russia had a terrible wheat crop. Right. We know their supplies are not as large as they would like them to be. We know the global supplies are not what we'd like them to be. That's a fact. So, whether they're going to admit that, they'll say, "Oh, we're going to do this because of the tensions," but that may be just masking the fact that they're really worried about their own personal supply, and they're dealing with wild inflation too. So that's all part of the process. That at the end of the day, if we strip the noise away, we need to have a big winter wheat crop. Mm-hmm. We need to have a big winter wheat crop to kind of put some of those bushels of wheat back into the coffers. And I don't think we're going to do it, Casey. I'm looking at the U.S. winter wheat crop looking awful. I'm looking at the winter wheat crop in Russia looking pretty awful. I don't see a big winter wheat crop this spring to help offset the catastrophically poor spring crop that we had over the summer into the fall. And so ultimately what's going to drive wheat prices is that very fact. Yes, we're going to go up a lot or down a lot. They're going to hold us. But what all this is saying is we don't have enough right now. And I think that any weather issues whatsoever that would surface between now and post-dormancy here in the spring, and the wheat market is going to have to react fairly violently on that. And we think that's probably a likely outcome here, given our weather forecast, especially for the U.S. We're looking for late winter ending, a lot of frost late in the season, and a lot of snow melt and flooding in the northern central plains and all. We just don't see that providing the comfort that the market needs, that it can get a big winter wheat crop and kind of help alleviate the shortage, at least for now. That's what we think. And so while the geopolitical is catching all the fanfare right now, we think beyond all of that, because that eventually will calm down. Eventually, that'll calm down. It'll still be, do we have enough wheat, and what's the winter wheat look like? And then we think that answer is we're not going to have enough. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Shawn, good stuff as usual, man. If folks want to reach out to you and get more information about what it is you're doing at Hackett Financial, what's the best way to do that?
Our website is Hackett, Hackett, advisors.com. Lots of information on there for your listeners to take a look at to see if what we do could be of value to your listeners.
Right on. Well, I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Make sure you check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's where you find the latest editions of the Moving Iron Podcast. Also go to MovingIronLLC.com for everything Moving Iron related and Moving Iron Summit related as well. So if you want some more information about the Moving Iron Summit, make sure you go to the email at MovingIronPodcast at MovingIronPodcast.com, and you can get all the information you need right there, because I will answer you back. So, Shawn, appreciate you being on the podcast, man.
Thank you, Casey. And just remember, it might actually get to 32 degrees where I'm at. We're looking at a stark freeze here in Florida. So your prayers would be very much welcome, Casey.
Yeah. Okay, Shawn. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour, Shawn Hackett. Let's go do some iron, folks. Out. You want to have a meaningful competitive advantage to help sell more equipment. Whether you represent the sales, parts, or management department of an implement dealership, there's a surprising amount of complexity when it comes to tire, wheel, and track technology. Let Axon worry about that so you can get back to supporting your customers. Axon has leveraged years of experience to create a streamlined process that gives you a proven path to help today's grower and sell more equipment. The roots of their organization go back almost 100 years to the invention of the rubber tractor tire. Supporting agriculture is the number one driver of Axon, from product development through sales and service. To find more or become an Axon dealer, head over to axontire.com. This podcast is also brought to you by Valley Transportation. Valley has over 33 years in the trucking business, moving ag and construction equipment across the country. For more information, go to valleytransinc.com or give Parker a call at 800-657-4910. At Valley Transportation, our goal is to help you reach yours. This podcast is also brought to you by Ag Direct. No matter how you buy your ag equipment, from a dealer, auction, or a private party, Ag Direct can help you finance it. You can even apply online at agdirect.com. Learn more about your financing options at agdirect.com.
Moving higher in the 21st century. Hard